In the worst days of our pandemic season, of what use is the holiday season? The wonderful message of hope. And from the pending celebration from one of the world's oldest faith traditions, how its message of hope is more applicable than ever today. As we speak with Rabbi Levi Greenberg of Chabad Lubavitch in El Paso, I'm Duke Keith. This is El Paso Townsquare. Welcome everybody to El Paso Townsquare. I am Duke Keith and joined by Rabbi Levi Greenberg, I'm going to get it, from Chabad Lubavitch in El Paso, Texas. And we are here to talk about Hanukkah. We're here to talk about faith during this coronavirus pandemic time and how it can really kind of help us, I think. There's a lot of consternation going through a pandemic. There are a lot of people who need the help mentally and emotionally, but a lot of that has to do with spiritual help. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yes, I mean, obviously, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Duke, and to speak in El Paso's Townsquare. What you said is correct. I mean, obviously, at a time of a pandemic and it's a public health crisis, first and foremost, we need to have the health professionals guiding us in how to navigate these trying times, in public health. But definitely when it comes to how we approach the situation, certainly, a healthy spirituality can be very important and is actually crucial for people at this time.
And let me ask you specifically about Hanukkah, because we are about to get into the 8 days of Hanukkah here very shortly. Talk about the holiday and its purposes, where it came from, and what is its design? What is its purpose for Jewish people?
Well, Hanukkah, just like all holidays, it commemorates a historic event about 2,150 years ago, give or take, when the Jews lived in the ancient state of Israel during the Second Holy Temple era. The Assyrian Greek Empire was conquering the world, and they came to Israel, to Jerusalem. They conquered the land, and they set about with an agenda of assimilating the people to their culture. Obviously, they respected the wisdom of the Torah, the wisdom of the Bible, the Jewish wisdom that dated back already for over 1,000 years at that point. They respected certain elements of Jewish culture, but they also claimed that the Jewish approach was outdated already then. And they wanted to force the people to start to accept their way of life. And they started off in a very nice way, in a very kind way. But ultimately, when there was resistance and Jews wanted to remain committed to their long-held traditions, that empire started to force their ideas on the Jewish nation. And at one point, they seized the Holy Temple. They terminated the service in the Holy Temple. They ransacked it, and Jewish observance and Jewish study went underground. Many people fled to the hills, to the caves, and there was a lot going on. There was a lot of persecution. People were killed for circumcising their children, for observing the Sabbath, and just teaching Torah, teaching the Bible to their children. And a small band of Jews called the Hashmoneans, and more popularly known as the Maccabees, they started a revolt. After a few years of this type of religious persecution, they led a small band of Jews against the mighty Greek Empire, and miraculously they won. They were victorious, and they recaptured the temple. When they came to the temple, they wanted to reinstate the service. They wanted to re-inaugurate the temple by doing the service. And one of the important observances in the temple was the kindling of a candelabra, known as the menorah. The menorah in the temple had 7 branches, or 7 flames. And the way it would light was through olive oil, but not just any olive oil. It needed to be ritually pure. There are certain religious obligations or definitions of how the oil should be prepared and preserved. And by the time they reached Jerusalem and recaptured the temple, there was no pure olive oil around. There was no ritually pure olive oil around. There was plenty of olive oil, but it did not fit that religious obligation. And they really wanted to use the right oil for the kindling of the candelabra. And after a long, exhaustive search, they miraculously found one flask of oil that was enough to burn for one night. It would take them about 8 days to produce this ritually pure oil, but they decided to give it a shot, and they filled up the candelabra. They lit the menorah, and it burned for 8 days and nights until they had a new supply of ritually pure olive oil. So this was a very big miracle. So aside for the fact that a small group of Jews were victorious against a mighty enemy, the main miracle that the Maccabees wanted to they wanted to give it eternal relevance to the Jewish people was the fact that that oil burned for 8 days and nights. And so they instituted the holiday of Hanukkah for 8 days, for 8 nights, and we observe the holiday by lighting a menorah. And each night we light one candle, and then every successive night we add another candle until on the 8th night we have 8 candles in our menorah. So that's basically the main observance of Hanukkah.
And that is, it's not one of the largest festivals. I know that there are many religious holidays in the Jewish faith. It's not one of the biggest, but it is because it kind of coincides with the Christmas season for Christians and some of the other holidays. I know Orthodox Christmas, if I'm correct, is celebrated a little bit later, but all around that holiday season, it is something that is thought of, is observed during this time.
You know, what's very interesting is that the observance of Hanukkah, the mitzvah, the idea of lighting the menorah, was instituted as something that's done at home. The idea is that everyone in their own home should light the menorah and recognize the miracle. But recently, starting in the early 1970s, Rabbi Schneerson, Lubavitch Rebbe, he encouraged all of his followers throughout the world to take the message of Hanukkah, the observance of Hanukkah, and take it out to the streets. And we should set up these giant menorahs everywhere and anywhere and bring crowds together and light the menorah. And what the Rebbe wanted to accomplish was to bring the message of Hanukkah, which we'll talk about soon. He wanted to bring that message of Hanukkah and show that it's actually a universal message that's relevant to everyone, and not just to the Jewish people that observe the holiday of Hanukkah, but its message has a very important relevance to every single person in the world.
Well, certainly. Go ahead.
I was just planning on launching into what the message is.
Sure.
So what's the idea of the menorah? In the Holy Temple, they would light the menorah during the day, and they would light the same amount every day. But when it comes to the menorah that we light on Hanukkah, we do things quite differently. We light it at night, and on the first night we light one candle, and then every other night we add in the candles. And there's a very profound lesson here. Number one, when you're confronted with darkness, don't think that the way to fight darkness is by condemning it, fighting it with sticks and stones. The best way to deal with darkness is by lighting a candle. Just introduce a little bit of light. And even if you only have enough to bring one little flame into this big space of darkness, realize that even just one flame can banish a lot of darkness, can really have a real impact. So number one, when it's dark outside, don't lose hope. Light a flame. Do a good deed. Do something kind. Be kind to others, even if it's something small and insignificant. But in a place of darkness, even something very small goodness can have a very big impact. But here's the catch. Tomorrow, don't just do one good deed. You have to always increase in the good deeds that you do. So you start off with one, but that one should give you the momentum to add, and the second night you do 2, and then 3, and then 4. So this is a message that is not uniquely relevant to the Jewish community. I think it's relevant to everyone. We're surrounded by what seems to be increasing darkness and chaos on so many levels, and it can be disheartening, disconcerting. And the answer is no. You possess the moral and ethical power to introduce more goodness into this world. Maybe a very little bit, but that little bit is significant. And all you have to do is continuously add.
It is a tremendous message, I think, especially during this time, especially in days of darkness, and so applicable. I know that there are other observances, the giving of gifts. That's something the kids love to see. Um, some of my Jewish friends were always, it's a little bit different from Christmas to Hanukkah. They're small gifts, but each of them also has a significance, does it not?
Yes, well, what's interesting is you mentioned gifts. The truth of the matter is, the original the original custom on Hanukkah is to give children money, geld. In Yiddish, money is geld, and the idea is that we give Hanukkah geld to the children on Hanukkah. The reason for that is because Hanukkah, the word Hanukkah, means it comes from the same etymological source as chinuch, which means education. So Hanukkah has a very profound educational value. What's the educational value of money? When we give children money, we're sending them a very profound message. With that money, you can do a lot of things. You can buy things, you can enjoy life. But really, when we're giving you the money, we want you to take a portion of that money and give it to charity. Not all of it, just a small portion of it and give it to charity. And with this, we train our children to appreciate the value of money, not just on what it can do for themselves, but how they can actually have an impact on others, how they can have an impact on the world, how they can share, how they can become sharing people with the money that they possess. And so that's actually the original custom of Hanukkah. It evolved, obviously, and nowadays many people give gifts. But I think it's actually very important to keep this element of the custom and to actually take a few dollars, give it to your children every night of Hanukkah and share with them this message.
It's talking about a tremendous message to give to children, to give to people, kind of going back to the theme of what Rebbe wanted to give the world, to spread the Hanukkah message everywhere, to put up giant menorahs. It's a show, but it's also something that shows exactly what Hanukkah is to everyone. And it is, I guess, because of that, a little more celebrated in cultures around the United States and Europe, if not the world, alongside Christmas. It is, I mean, Christmas is
It's certainly
very
a season
commercial.
where people are looking to celebrate.
Yes,
And there is definitely the opportunity to bring this celebratory message. You think
yes.
about it, it's really a message that resonates when people are in a celebratory mode. And I think it's very important for people to be aware of it.
Christmas is very commercial these days, but I know that there are messages of Hanukkah. You can send Hanukkah cards, and everything kind of melds together a little bit. But I guess if the message gets out, that's what's important. It is important to show these things, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And talk about the dreidel. I know that this is something, you spin the dreidel. Does it? Are there prizes associated with what it lands on? How does what is the dreidel? What is its significance?
So let's talk about the significance of the dreidel. Just like everything in Hanukkah, there's the historical significance. During the time of the Greek conquest of the land of Israel, when they were forcing their ideas onto the population, so they understood, the Greeks understood that as long as Jewish education continues to thrive, they have no chance. So the first thing they did was to shut down the Jewish education system. And children were forced to go into hiding. Anyone that was found teaching Torah to their children, they were put to death immediately. But the children really wanted to learn Torah. They wanted to continue that tradition. They wanted to have access to this wisdom. And they knew that Torah is really the source of life. So they would hide out in the caves, and their teacher was with them, and he would teach them Torah. They had these scouts that would stand outside the caves, and when they saw that the Greek soldiers were approaching to find them, they would warn their friends. They would immediately hide the scrolls. The teacher would go into hiding, and they would pull out these tops, and they would start playing. So the dreidel game is really a commemoration of the Jewish children making the ultimate sacrifice in order to continue Torah learning and Torah study. And so therefore we play the dreidel on Hanukkah. Now the dreidel has 4 sides to it, and it's customary to write 4 Hebrew letters on each side of the dreidel. And these 4 letters are the 4 letters that start the 4 words that spell out the following. Nes Gadol Haya Sham. A great miracle happened there. In the land of Israel, they kind of changed the letter a bit, and it reads, a great miracle happened here. And the way you play the game, this is just something, I guess, that came up throughout history. You have the four letters on each side, and you have like in the middle, you have some money or whatever it may be. You spin the dreidel, and when it falls, so if it falls on the letter Nun, you get nothing. If it falls on the letter Gimel, you get the entire pot. If it falls on the letter Hey, you get only half the pot. And if it falls on the letter Shin, so then you have to pay into the pot. So it's just a nice, fun game that children play and adults play it as well. And people make up their own rules and they have different ways of spinning it. That's a lot of fun. But really what it represents is the commitment of the children to the continuation of Judaism.
That's tremendous. It sounds like fun. How's your luck with Dreidel over the course of your years?
I'm not tracking it. I don't have the data. Every year it's something new. It's a whole different. It's a different game every year.
It is a different. It's probably a lot with who you're playing and how many people are involved at any given time. Are there limits
now that
to
my
this?
children are older, we play together, and it's always a blast.
Outstanding. The season of Hanukkah runs from when to when?
This year, Hanukkah begins on the evening of December 10th. That's on Thursday, and it runs through the 18th. So the final night of Hanukkah is Thursday. So it's Thursday to Thursday, Thursday night to Thursday night.
Okay, Thursday to Thursday. The 8 crazy nights, as Adam Sandler made famous in his cartoon. Right. What about? I know that Hanukkah is not one of the major religious festivals in the Jewish tradition, but there are many. How important is liturgy, especially as you're not only trying to teach the Jewish faith, especially to the younger generation, but I mean, what message does that send? I think to the larger world, and what help, I guess, does liturgy give people when you're trying to discuss matters of faith?
So in general, if you want to specifically speak about the holiday of Hanukkah, what it represents, what the observance of the menorah represents, and also the liturgy that's associated with it, the message that comes across with this festival of Hanukkah is that it's always right over might, truth over falsehood. No matter how intimidating the big bad world may seem, no matter how intimidating it may seem that forces of falsehood and evil and persecution are, if you have access to something that's true, something that's good, something that represents moral and ethical behavior, don't be disheartened and don't feel intimidated by the forces that seem greater than yourself. As I say, stick to your guns, stand up for what's right, and ultimately, good will overpower evil.
That's a tremendous message, regardless of your faith, regardless of your tradition. Certainly, that speaks to now, especially in this dark time. We seem to be about ready to come out of this darkness that has been spread by the novel coronavirus and COVID-19. El Paso has been one of the worst hit communities, obviously. What have you been doing for Chabad Lubavitch? Have you been able to meet? Do you meet virtually? How have you dealt with the current situation? And what message, I would guess, has Hanukkah helped you send to those who attend Chabad Lubavitch?
So the truth is, it all depends on the timing. By now, we're already 8 to 9 months into this Corona situation. So obviously, for a long time, we were not meeting in person. All of our classes up until today are online. Most of our events are all virtual. Several months ago, we started meeting in person. We just opened a very large synagogue, and it really allows for socially distant services. Everyone is in masks whenever it happens. So we're doing things in a very responsible and proper way, obviously in conjunction with health professionals. So although we've been able to meet, it's definitely different. It's not the same. And essentially our message is that Jewish observance, Jewish religious life is not exclusively limited to congregational life. In other words, Judaism is really a religion that is celebrated at home. It's about the home. So yes, it's important to come together as a community, but even if we are not able to come together, those that cannot attend services for many different reasons, they can have a very strong and healthy relationship with God, even when they are in the isolation of their home. Almost everything can be observed at home, and especially Hanukkah. The main observance of Hanukkah is at home to light the menorah. So although we're accustomed to having large parties and gatherings, and this year we really want to have it, so we're having a drive-in event on Sunday the 13th in a large parking lot. There's going to be entertainment and a giant menorah lighting. So there's going to be that ability for people to gather in a social distanced way if they choose to do so. But don't let this Hanukkah be a damper. This Hanukkah could be especially joyous and happy and meaningful from the comfort and safety of your home.
This is, I think, a wonderful and positive message. I know that that faith-based organizations, whether those are temples, whether those are churches, whether those are synagogues, however, whatever it might be, it's important, especially in this time, I think, to have that kind of a faith. And it seems to me that a lot of people throughout the United States, if not the world, are kind of aching for that message of hope. I read your column in El Paso Matters on Thanksgiving. It was a wonderful, wonderful take. And really, it is very much about being strong. It is the message of Hanukkah, being strong in the face of adversity. And there is so much to teach if people are willing to kind of be open to those things. And I think that there are people who are definitely open to that more than they ever have been before.
Yes, and the good news is that the power of goodness over evil and the power of light over darkness is not complicated. In other words, a person, during this time, in order to find hope and to find faith, one does not need to go through thorough and rigorous theological thinking. Sometimes some very simple ideas and simple behaviors can really transform the way we approach life and the way we live our day. Take, for example, the ability to be kind to others, the ability to be givers. Some people think that you have to be able to write out $1 million check in order to make an impact, to make a difference. But the Rebbe taught us that by having a charity box at home, starting off the day by placing a coin in the charity box, $1, a nickel, a quarter, whatever it may be. And once that box fills up and there's, whatever it is, it could be $10, $15, $20.28. And you take that money and then you send it off to an organization that's helping others. If you find someone on the street that needs money, you give them some money. Being kind, doing kind things can be something that becomes routine in our day. And you don't have to be rich, and you don't have to be a very sophisticated philanthropist with a foundation or anything like that. All you need to have is simply some cash, and everyone has something lying around, and set it aside every day. And that really changes the way we approach our day, and it really has an impact on the community.
I know that there is obviously there's a definite crossing of traditions between the Jewish and Christian faiths. We were always taught that the one place in the Word that God told us to test Him came in the book that we call Malachi. I don't know if that translates necessarily, but the one place where God said, "Test me," was in the area of tithing, and it is
Right.
a wonderful, wonderful promise, I think, for people of faith, and it is a wonderful step to take for anybody who wants to just do that little bit of kindness. Does that translate between the Jewish and Christian
Yes,
faiths?
absolutely. Yeah, it's in the Bible, in the book of Malachi, and yes, God says, "Test me. If you're going to give charity, I'm going to pay you back many times over." And in fact, it's not something that's uniquely limited to the idea of faith. I think all people all over the world can relate to and associate with the importance of kindness and sharing.
That is a wonderful message, especially in this day and age. As we face the novel coronavirus together as a country, obviously this country has a lot of other challenges that it is striving to meet as we try to roll out the vaccine and get the economy up and running. There are challenges here in El Paso. We have seen lots of challenges from August 3rd of 2019 to the border crisis, to the crisis of immigrants being released into the streets of El Paso. There are plenty of opportunities around this city for people to do good, in lasting and memorable ways if you're ready to go meet that challenge. And I think that the message of Hanukkah is a wonderful message to try and get and inspire people to do exactly that. You are not helpless. And I think that's maybe the biggest and best message of all right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you said it perfectly.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And again, if you want to read Rabbi Levi Greenberg's message, Chabad Lubavitch, you are one of the rabbis with Chabad Lubavitch. You mentioned you just opened a new facility. Certainly, tell folks where is Chabad Lubavitch, and if people wanted to join with you in issues of faith, how might they go do that?
We're located on the west side of El Paso at 6516 Escondido Drive. If you'd like to get in touch with us and see how we can service you and how you can join us, you can go online at www.chabadelpaso.com. Get in touch with us, and I look forward to the conversation.
This is wonderful. And if you want to do that, if you just want to take those messages of faith, find them online. And certainly, if you're looking for a place of faith to join, there are plenty of churches and plenty of synagogues around El Paso, plenty of temples that you can be a part of. And it's, I think, maybe now more than ever, especially as we hit this holiday season for both the Jewish and the Christian traditions, something that people will be taking to heart and looking to kind of get that bit of inspiration, because we're almost at the edge of this thing. We're almost at the edge of the novel coronavirus pandemic. Messages of hope are certainly welcome, and messages of action, I think, are something it's kind of up to us. Also, let me ask you this. In terms of traditions crossing over, it seems that God meets people when they take that first step. Would you agree with that? Because it's something that I've been taught through the Christian faith, that God meets you, but you've got to be the one to take that first step.
Absolutely. I mean, I would take it even a step further, that God is the one that gives us the ability and inspiration to take that first step. So, God brings about certain situations where a person may find themselves in, and is expecting us to take that initial step to transform that situation, not from a challenge into an opportunity. Take even a situation where a pandemic is forcing us all to remain at home, not to gather together as a community, and just in general in crowds. There's a certain energy that comes from being in a crowd. But the fact that we can't be together with a crowd, that itself should inspire us to focus on the innate ability that each and every one of us has as individuals in our own homes to project light and energy of goodness and kindness throughout the entire community.
So well said. And I look forward to speaking with you in the future whenever issues of faith in the heart come up, whenever challenges come up. I think that there are so many answers provided by communities of faith all around El Paso, if not this country and the world, if you go hunting for them. But again, as we just talked about, it's good to take the first step yourself.
And the truth is, we shouldn't be waiting for a challenge to be able to have conversations about faith and hope. We should also be able to celebrate the good times and the good things that are going on around us, also from a perspective of faith and of a belief in God, and appreciating the unique ability that all of us have to be agents of good in the entire world.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Rabbi, I appreciate your time. Rabbi Levi Greenberg. I want to say Levi or Levi, as I'm sure you've probably heard a million times, but it's Levi Greenberg from Chabad Lubavitch in El Paso. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
And a happy Hanukkah to the entire El Paso.
Our thanks once again to Rabbi Levi Greenberg of Chabad Lubavitch here in El Paso. Regardless of your faith tradition, hope is certainly a commodity we could all use more of. If you have any story ideas, feel free to email me, dkeith@klaq.com, or find me here in the social media. Until next week, I look forward to speaking to you then. I'm Duke Keith. This is El Paso Townsquare. So long, everybody.